Good morning, and thanks again for joining us at the Hydrogen Fuel Cells Batteries Group exhibit in Hanover 2018. This morning I'm speaking with Mr. Cory Shumaker, who's the development specialist at the California Hydrogen Business Council, and we will be discussing the heavy-duty vehicle testing in California ports. Good morning, thanks for joining us. Hi. Thank you. Okay, so first of all, we'd like to know what the California Hydrogen Business Council does.
Well, the California Hydrogen Business Council is a nonprofit member-supported organization. We have over 100 members that are participating in the hydrogen and fuel cell industry. These members are not all located within California. We also have many international members as well. And our mission is to accelerate the commercialization of hydrogen and fuel cell vehicles and equipment in California. But we also have a global vision as well. I myself am actually based in Paris. And so I try to do some more collaboration between Europe.
Thank you. So you try to join the two continents together. So your title, Heavy Duty Vehicle Testing in California Ports, can you expand a little bit on this?
Sure. So there is something called the Department of Energy a couple years ago created the ZECT-2, Zero Emission Cargo Transport 2. This was a federally funded project to demonstrate Class 8 hydrogen fuel cell trucks. Would also receive some funding from the South Coast Air Quality Management District, which manages the air quality around the Los Angeles, Southern California region. So this is going to be a total of 6 trucks initially, but there was a couple of trucks added, so there's going to be 8 trucks, fuel cell, Class 8, 44 tons, so 80,000 pounds, demonstrated in the ports of LA and Long Beach. This is done through Total Transportation Services Incorporated. TTSI is a trucking company out of Carson, California. They will be demonstrating these trucks. Soon after next month, they should receive the first 2 to begin testing.
And I believe that there is you have a mandate of zero emission by 2020?
2025 for zero emission terminal equipment within the ports of LA and Long Beach, and 2030 for zero-emission trucks in the ports of LA and Long Beach. So this is the drive behind these projects.
And so switching a little bit our discussion here, what's your relation or what have you heard about Nikola in the States especially?
So Nikola is a major player now in the heavy-duty trucking space in hydrogen fueling. They are not a member of the California Hydrogen Business Council yet. Yet, we push on them hard. However, some of our members, such as Nell, are participating in their rollout and demonstration. I don't have a lot of information, but I do know that they have, I believe, a working prototype, and they're working with Nell on a few stations to deploy that prototype along with a few other trucks, I believe at some time next year, the year after. We have spoken to Trevor Milton, the CEO of Nikola, and he has basically been too busy to participate in our events, but the interest is there, and we hope to incorporate him into some of our events next year, and he has shown interest to do that.
And speaking of events, I believe you have an event coming up on the 30th. Are you hoping that he'll make it for that?
We did invite him. So on April 30th in Long Beach, California, it's hydrogen and fuel cells and on-road trucking. So we will be talking specifically about Class 8 trucks, hydrogen fuel cell Class 8 trucks. This is a half-day workshop where we will talk about the different perspectives with these vehicles from a user perspective, a truck OEM perspective, also technology perspective, and a fueling infrastructure keynote. So we try to get all the information together from the different stakeholders and facilitate a dialogue around pushing this forward.
So as far as challenges, what challenges does the council encounter?
In the challenges specifically for heavy-duty trucks, primarily, I would say is funding and fueling. creating infrastructure for these vehicles is quite difficult. You cannot use a light-duty hydrogen station to fill a 40-ton truck. So dedicated fueling depots have to be created for these trucks. And the way that these initial 8 trucks that are going to be demonstrated by the end of this year are going to be fueled is with a mobile refueler provided by Air Products. This is basically a hydrogen tube trailer that's parked in a specific area outside of the Port of LA and Long Beach, not connected to any utility. And the vehicles will drive to this and they will refill. And as those tube trailers become empty, they will be replenished by Air Products. That's right.
And so I hear Toyota's a player in this as well. Can you expand a bit on that?
So last year, Toyota surprised us all and created an unveiling of a Class 8 truck. They basically, I believe it was a Kenworth, they took a chassis from them, said, don't worry about what we're doing with this, turn your eyes. 8 months later, they unveiled a fuel cell truck. They took 2 Mirai stacks, put them together with, I believe, a couple of Mirai motors as well. And so they have a fully functioning 40-ton Class 8 truck, basically with Mirai components inside. They unveiled it a year ago. They have been testing, I believe, for over 6 months. So they are running in and out of the port every day. We've tried to get this truck to some of our events, but it's consistently busy doing revenue runs, which is important. They will be refueling by a tri-generation system. One of our members, Fuel Cell Energy, creates a tri-generation system which takes biogas and converts it into heat, electricity, and hydrogen. This hydrogen will be used to refuel the vehicle, the truck, and also will be used to refuel the Mirais as they come into the ports from Japan. So they have created a way to facilitate fueling for that vehicle, and so in the future, for other fuel cell trucks, there needs to be a dedicated refueling system, and that's still being worked on.
Can we talk a little bit about areas of opportunity for the council and in general?
Sure. So specifically for the trucking, the situation that we have in California, we have an enormous amount of containers that move in and out of the ports of LA and Long Beach. And a lot of those containers go from the port basin about 20 miles north into the major railhead of Los Angeles. And so this is a corridor called the I-710 freeway. This is often called a cancer corridor. There's a lot of disadvantaged communities that live alongside these freeways, and so there's a major focus by the state to do things that would improve the air quality. And so that's why the California Sustainable Freight Action Plan was created to improve freight efficiencies, but really to reduce freight emissions. So there's a great need and opportunity for these trucks to go up and down this freeway. Now, one could argue that a lot of these movements could be done by batteries, and we will see what Elon can produce. He's made a lot of claims. But the reality is that when you have a fuel cell truck, you have the ability to do quick refueling, and you can do more turns, more back and forths in a day than you were if you had an electric truck who had to have charging downtime. So there is great opportunity for fuel cell trucks in the areas of Long Beach and Los Angeles.
And so bringing it a little bit back to our site here, what's your relationship with the European ports?
Sure. So I have had the pleasure of talking with the Port of Antwerp, the Port of Rotterdam, Gothenburg, and Hamburg. And they all have various environmental goals, and they do want to clean up their air. And recently I've gotten into more detailed conversations with the Belgian ports and the Netherlands ports about the trucking aspect of it. And it's interesting that they don't feel they have the same sort of strong arm power as Long Beach and Los Angeles do, as far as forcing the trucks that are within their port land to be zero emission. That is, I think, at best case, still being just discussed. There hasn't been any specific targets that have been laid down yet. And I think there's more of a relationship between the trucking in Long Beach and the Port Authority. You have various like port truck fees that have to be paid, and so there's sort of a financial relationship between the trucking companies and the Port Authority, and that doesn't really exist in some of the ports like Rotterdam, where they don't really have this port truck fee and other ways that they can create financial incentives to have cleaner zero-emission trucks. So it's interesting in Europe. I think that the pull really has to come from the customers, companies like Heineken that are trying to do more things in a more environmentally friendly way. They have electric barge that they're working on trying to move their beer. And if they say, listen, we want our trucks, we want our beer to be transported with zero-emission trucks, and the trucking companies respond to that. I know for a fact that there's LNG trucking that's going on for Heineken, and the situation could very well be in the future where we have a fuel cell truck available, and they say, okay, we want this is complete zero emission, not just near zero, to transport our goods. So the pull's going to have to be from the customer side, I think, on the European, rather than on the authoritative port authority side.
What other ports, you mentioned, I believe, one, what other ports are participating in this, or are you trying to bridge the gap with? Like European ports.
Right. So the major European ports of Antwerp, Rotterdam, Hamburg, Gothenburg, they're in constant communication with Long Beach and Los Angeles, and they're trying to learn a lot from what they're doing. I know that there was a Clean Air Action Plan created in Hamburg, similar to one that was created in LA and Long Beach. And so I know that community of environmentalists within the port authorities are communicating and trying to replicate the best practices of each other.
And going back to the event that you're having again on the 30th, can you expand a bit more on that again?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, it's a half-day event, and so we try to put together a picture of the various stakeholders involved in the trucking industry with hydrogen. So you have the end users, you have the trucking companies themselves, so UPS and actually FedEx as well are participating in a medium-duty demonstration of a fuel cell vehicle in Southern California. We'll actually have UPS on a panel next to TTSI, which is a trucking company that will be testing eventually they'll have 8 hydrogen and fuel cell trucks. So we try to get the understanding of what were the drivers for change inside their company. Why did they choose hydrogen? What are some of the things that they're excited about? What are some of the things that they're anticipating may be difficult for them and challenges? They don't have a lot of experience with these vehicles yet, and we hope this will be an annual event and we'll get more of an update from them later. And then we move on to an OEM side. So not all of the OEMs have embraced hydrogen. Kenworth is doing a project right now, and they're basically in a position to see if this makes sense for them, and they're learning a lot from this. I think other companies such as Volvo and you would say Mercedes or Daimler Freightliner, they're more of a kind of watch and see situation. We've engaged them in conversations, and they have not come onto our panel yet, but we hope that they will in the future. And then we have a handful of members that are participating in the various technology component providing for these trucks. So we'll talk about the fuel cells that are being provided for them. And then we also have to talk about fueling, and there's various ways to refuel. So we talk about on-site electrolysis, which Nell is going to be on our booth, and they actually have a booth here.
They have a large booth at the fair.
Yeah. We also will hear from Fuel Cell Energy and how they're going to be filling the Toyota truck. And we'll also be hearing from a CNG provider, because within the United States, a company called Love has various CNG dispensers spread out around the country, and they have recently started doing hydrogen refueling for fuel cell buses in Orange County, and they potentially see themselves playing a role in the heavy-duty refueling of vehicles and heavy-duty trucks. So we're going to be talking to them about that. And then in California, to really, with the carrot and stick maneuver by the California Air Resources Board, to learn more about the various methods of funding, we hear from the California Air Resources Board in a keynote to try to understand what monies are out there, what's available, and what can be done. One of the things that's been really exciting recently is Zero and Near Zero Freight Facilities Project. It's $100 million that have been allocated by the California Air Resources Board to go towards a large demonstration of various zero-emission technologies working together. And California's goal is really to clean up this whole supply chain and try to get rid of as many emissions as possible.
So is California always, as we know, leading the pack a little bit in this field. Do you have any questions at the moment? No? Okay. What would you like for people to take away from our conversation today? Like the most important points that you would like to rephrase, perhaps?
That fuel cell heavy-duty trucking is happening. It's happening now. It's happening in California. It can absolutely happen in Europe. And I think that we can hopefully see more trucks on the road in both Europe and California in the near future.
And again, your event, where can they find out about it and how to attend it?
So
And, sorry, where is it, by the way?
Yeah, it's in Long Beach, California.
Thank you.
There's a large alternative transportation exposition going on next week in Long Beach at the Long Beach Convention Center. It's going to be showcasing a lot of various alternative technologies for medium and heavy duty trucking. And so we basically piggyback and do a co-locating workshop. If you go to californiahydrogen.org, that's where you can find out information about us. We have our event listed on that page if you so happen to be in Long Beach next week, like myself.
Or make the trip there for the sun.
Or fly out, yeah.
Fly out. Okay, thank you so much again to Cory Shumaker, who's the development specialist at the California Hydrogen Business Council. And the topic again was heavy-duty vehicle testing in California ports. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So up next, we have Dr. Manfred Steffner, Chairman of VDMA Working Group Fuel Cells and Vice President of Freudenberg Sealing Technologies, and Mr. Franz Legner, Senior Consultant at E4 Tech. Thank you very much.